Hello everyone, I'm here with Margo again. We did a video before,
Yeah.
and we're going to do some videos to talk about different issues that are going on throughout the world. So this one is about, we wanted to talk about why we were happy that, well, Margo and I are friends, so we're Christian women, and we wanted to give a perspective, a Christian women perspective on different issues. So we talked about how we were quite happy that Mr. Trump won in the United States and his Republican politicians, and why we were happy and the reasons why and various reasons, and we may have different focuses or reasons for that support. But yeah, so do you want to talk about why you think it was good that Mr. Trump and his Republican politicians won the United States election?
Yeah. It's good to be back here with you again, Teresa. So, you know, we're still friends. Thank God. I think, to be honest, I was actually hoping he wouldn't win.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, I was a bit divided. So, part of me was like, I hope he wins, and then part of me was like, it doesn't bother me if he doesn't win because, yeah, I'm a bit of an accelerationist. So, I thought Kamala taking over the country would just destroy it faster, and the faster it's destroyed, the faster that we can build it back up again, you know. Yeah, but I was happy that Trump won in the end because, you know, I guess he's pro-Israel. That was number one for me.
Yep.
I can't wait until that third temple's rebuilt in Jerusalem, which I believe they will make happen, and that'll bring in, you know, the Antichrist.
So in the book of Revelation,
Yeah.
Specifically, and there's other New Testament teachings about that, and in the book of Daniel as well.
Yes, yeah.
So, yeah, do you want to go on with that
Yeah.
reasoning, or what did you want to explain about that?
With the Antichrist, or...
Well, the reason why you're happy Trump won.
Oh, yeah,
And then
yeah.
because
So
of
those
his
are...
connection with Israel,
Yeah.
and then you were saying, yeah.
Also, you know, he's just better for the country. He's pro-America, pro the people. He's not into this whole climate agenda. So he's happy to start drilling again and, you know, using fossil fuels, which will lower the price of energy for the American people.
Yeah. It's a
what
bit of a
else?
scam, that climate change.
Yeah, for
agenda
sure.
and all
Yeah,
that sort of
yeah.
thing.
And I love that Trump calls that out. And yeah, I think
Well, the climate's always been changing since the beginning of time, right? So how can
Exactly.
they say, you know, like it's and mostly the atheist perspective anyway, isn't it? To say
Yeah.
they're pushing that agenda, which is not really,
It's not an issue.
it's not valid. But then,
No.
actually, I remember speaking in one federal election. It was 2019. It was in the Cuba federal electorate, and there was a greenie type forum that I was speaking at, and I was talking about the environment, and I was talking about you know, photosynthesis and the function of trees and how they're very important, and how you know, how everything's created and fossil fuels and all that used for we're supposed to use those resources, and that if you want to help the environment, you can do, you know, this and this and this and this. And they sort of looked at me with a blank face, actually, like when I was really talking about the environment and talking about views and with the renewables and versus electricity production and all that, and how they didn't seem to understand. But they're supposed to be greenies, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're supposed to understand all that. And so anyway.
Well, they don't understand because they don't understand real science. They don't understand how science works, and they don't understand how the world actually works. So the fact that they're saying that that we have climate change and the world's dying, the world is dying because of sin.
Yeah.
But God has provided and continues to do so, and the fossil fuels are in the ground because God's provided that for us.
No, He created the physical earth, the humans, animals, everything we see in creation is seen, and that's evidence that God is real. That's what Paul the Apostle said.
Yeah.
And also that, you know, we're supposed to use everything God created for our good and for our
Exactly.
benefit. So we're supposed to use it, but we have to use them responsibly.
Yeah, for sure.
But we have to use them to do, you know, produce energy and produce electricity and everything, and that's normal and natural. It's very natural.
And there's nothing wrong with being sustainable. Like I think, you know, recycling and being sustainable are all good things.
Yeah.
But when you stop using what's in the ground that's provided for us naturally, and you start trying to manufacture energy in the form of, you know, solar wind farms and panels, and, you know, where it's just another form of control that the government wants to use. They can switch us off any time. Whereas with gas, we have more freedom, we have more flexibility in the way that we use our energy and resources.
Yeah, there's coal, gas, you know, but solar energy is important too. It should all be used.
Yeah.
But then I think what they want to impose taxes, and they want to impose regulations and conditions on like farmers and people like that, and it's wrong. It's bad to do that. Anyway, we'll try and go back to Trump. We got sidetracked a bit on the environment,
edit
but
that
that's okay. You can keep it in if you want. It's fine. Whatever. Use that in another video or whatever as well. Any other reasons why you're happy that Trump won and the Republican? Because it's all the Republican politicians. It's not just Trump.
No. Obviously, he has a team behind him, but you know, this is something that we were discussing also prior to doing this video. But I think, you know, the media taints President Trump as a misogynist who hates women. And doesn't want to support them, or he's just a womanizer. But he's actually pro women.
He's pro women in a big way.
Yeah,
actually. Yeah.
And he is, you know, pro family.
Yeah. Yes.
He wants to see families succeed, and, you know,
pro parents.
Yeah, pro parenting. You know, he wants parents to be responsible for their own children.
Yes.
Yeah. To be able to provide for their families.
Yeah, to work and have businesses, and his whole economic vision is good. It's very sound, even though as a businessman himself, I've studied his work, and the documentary is made about him, and you know, paid too much for buildings and all that. That's true. But what he talks about is, and does economically, that's one reason why I'm happy with Mr. Trump and the Republican politicians, because with their economic policies, they're a lot more for family businesses and business people, working people, and that's always positive and good. It's always to empower people economically. Good leaders do that, and they make sure businesses can be successful and promoted and thriving, and so people can support their own families and their community, and that's incredibly important. Like it's why I have in my political website there, small business, working people's rights, business rights to support. Because if you promote that as a leader, then you're going to build a powerful domestic economy, and you're going to be able to empower people to become more wealthier, even poor people, to have a job and have a business, and then become prosperous, and they can support their family and their community. So that's really what it's about. So that's one thing I like about the Republican politicians. They're a lot more better for the economy. Also with the border protection as well. That's very good, because you've got to protect your own country's border. You can't just let people in the country without legal processes, because it's not safe. You don't know who's coming through the country. And that also leads to what we were talking before, is another reason why a strong border is just not for just so you don't want to let people in the country. There's lots and lots of reasons for that, right? To protect the people, but when we were talking before, and I wrote a lot in my book about the sex trafficking of women and children, and Mr. Trump has done tremendous work in that area, and I wrote stuff about that in my book, which I'll just share a little bit now, if that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
And that he, in his first term, so I wrote a bit about Mr. Trump and the Republican politicians, and also against the transgender thing as well. They're against that.
Yes.
And they want to protect children and women in sport, and get men out of women's spaces and sports and prisons and all that, and they want to stop the transgender of children, which is the mutilation of children's bodies and sterilising with those drugs, which is very dangerous. And he's been speaking out against that. So, and I wrote, when I published this, July 2000. the political persecution of women children, 556 pages in just July of 2024, and I did already wrote a lot about Trump, and I looked at speeches from political women in the Republican Party, which are conservative. A lot of those women are conservative Christian women, and they are tremendous women. They're so powerful and so great, and when you watch them speak, and I quoted a number of their speeches, and all their values and morals, they've got excellent values, and they make excellent leaders, and these sorts of women are in his party, and they support him, and he supports them.
Yeah.
So when, for example, introduced a bill, the Republican politicians in 2023, the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, and then these Republican women gave a series of speeches, which I put in the book, and how they also had a second federal Republican bill protecting girls and women's sports, Save Women's Sports Act. That was December 2023. So it follows, right here, it follows similar laws passed by 23 states to protect girls and women's sports as of December 2023. Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Idaho, Ohio, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, etc. So all these politicians in those, the Republican women politicians and men, they gave speeches about, and they created those laws to try to stop it. So that was excellent. And then also I published, I put together, there's about 8 or 9 speeches that Mr. Trump made in 2023 about getting men out of women's sports and spaces and out of women's prisons and stopping the transgender of children as well. So that was big for me, why I wanted him to win. Like, you know, there's about 8 or 9 speeches that I quoted him from things that he said. So, for example, in March 1st, 2021, CPAC, Florida, he said Joe Biden and the Democrats are even pushing policies that would destroy women's sports. So he's talking about that, and he's talking about the, you know, child mutilation. He called it child sexual mutilation with the transgender thing, and how he's going to abolish it, and how he was going to punish the pharmaceutical directors and companies, and he was going to look at do a big investigation into the pharmaceutical industry with that, and also what the hospitals were doing, and the clinics and the schools and everything. And he was talking about how he's going to get it out of the schools and out of the medical system. So I quoted him saying that in the book. For example, 4th of October 2023 at COGOP convention, Trump said, "We will prosecute those involved in California's depraved new laws that strip parents of parental rights." Can you believe who would have thought 10 years ago if somebody got up and said we will stop child sexual mutilation, people would say this guy's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, he can't believe that we, the world, can't believe, a lot of us can't believe that that's even going on.
Yeah.
So that he's going to stop it. And he talks a lot about parental rights and in the education system as well, in his speeches. So I've studied many of his speeches. And also, just quickly, just from the book, also the sex trafficking of women and children. A lot of people don't know, but back in 2017, 2018, 2019, Mr. Trump and his Republican politicians and women in the community, mostly Christian women and conservative women, they had meetings with Mr. Trump, and he had a whole series of meetings, and he created laws. He created 9 pieces of legislation, which ended up being bipartisan legislation, but he created it. And that was to stop online sex trafficking of women and children, and at the border, so in practice and online. So some incredible work has been done back then, 2017, 2018, 2019. And there's videos on YouTube where you can see that they were having meetings and the dates and all this, and they've actually created laws to stop it. For example, you can look at an article which I quoted, Reuters.com, 12th of April 2018, but there's also videos on YouTube about this. Trump signs law to punish websites for sex trafficking. In October 2020, President Trump also signed an executive order combating human trafficking and online child exploitation in the USA. Since taking office, he signed 9 pieces of bipartisan legislation to combat domestic and international human trafficking. And that's from trumpwhitehouse.archives.gov. But that's specifically for sex trafficking of women and children. And they were talking about that in the meetings and the legislation to stop it. And also for 20 years, the USA has had the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. And I wrote about how his politicians are basically the only ones to really do it in the United States, to try to stop it, at least in the United States, which is excellent. So that's the sort of values that they have. I talked about other women leaders in the United States, Republican women. Great women like South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem and politician Tulsi Gabbard, who recently became a Republican. She was Democrat.
Oh, right.
Yeah, she changed. She changed because she said the Democrats have become immoral, and she quit and she became a Republican. She should be in the Trump administration probably. She should have a role in that because she's brilliant. She should actually be the president of the United States. Tulsi Gabbard, and women like as I said, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, and also another woman.
Have you quoted Nancy
Who'd make an excellent president is Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She's the governor of Arkansas. She could be a president of the United States. Sorry, what was the question?
Sorry, I interrupted.
No, it's all right.
Nancy Mace. Is it Nancy Mace, the Republican? Is she recently?
Yes, yep. She's a Republican politician. I've got her quoted in my book. Yeah,
what
we're going to say about
just
her.
what she's doing now, trying to create spaces specifically for women. So she's actually enacting what Trump, I guess, this whole time planning against, the infiltration of men into women's spaces.
Yes. Well, those Republican women that made speeches and were involved in creating those laws to get save women's sports laws. I've just got to find that section. I had the page.
With Nancy Mace.
I've lost the page.
Yeah, I don't know where she came from. It's like
Nancy Mace is one of the.
Has she always been in the forefront the way she is now? Because I've not heard of her before.
She was one of the politicians that made speeches. Yeah, they've been in the federal. It's the House of Representatives in the United States. They've been there for years and years, and they don't
hear about
they don't get enough.
Yeah, they don't get airtime.
They don't get enough exposure and broadcasting.
Yeah. And if they do, they're made to look like crazy.
I'll just show you.
Well, I don't know if she's been, but most of the time, like the way they take Trump as a womanizer and sexist, he's actually not. He's actually pro-women, pro-woman,
Well, the governor of Arkansas, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, she's one of my favourites. She created in 2023 all these laws and rules about you can't degrade women's language when they're calling women, breeders and cervix havers and all that. She said that language is going to be banned in the state of Arkansas. And she gave these great speeches and had all these women around her, all these mostly Christian and conservative women. And they gave speeches about how they're bringing this executive order to stop all that in that state, and that they weren't going to allow that to happen in that state because she is the governor of that state, and she did that. So that was something that she did. So some of these Republican women politicians who brought in the Women and Girls in Sports Act and Save Women's Sports Act, they gave these great speeches.
Oh, we're recording?
Yeah, they're on the internet. That's right. Elise Stefanik, Beth Van Dyne, there's Diana Harshbarger, Debbie Lisco, Michelle Fishback, Minnesota. The other one was Debbie Lisco's Arizona. Diana Harshbarger, Tennessee. Beth Van Dyne is Texas. And then Elise Stefanik was, she was the House Republican Conference Chair, Congresswoman. And all these women gave all these brilliant speeches about stopping all these abuses towards women. Michelle Fishback, Minnesota. I think I said that one. Lisa McLean, Michigan. Marinette Meet, Iowa. Nancy Mace, did a spelling error there. Nancy Mace, South Carolina, her speech, and then Carolyn Miller, West Virginia, Jennifer Higgins, Virginia, Maria Salazar, Florida, and there was an athlete there, Macy Petty, in the conference speaking. So yeah, all these Republican women gave these great speeches about women's rights and children's rights, you know, and I quoted some of these speeches in my book because they're just brilliant speeches and they should be, you know, celebrated and promoted. That was the chapter on transgender and also the chapter on the sex slave trade, rape for profit, another chapter, which I wrote 12 chapters.
Yeah, I think you did a great job in summarising these quotes from women supporting Trump.
Yes, I made, they're politicians, women in the United States in that Republican Party, and they basically made some brilliant speeches about women's rights and children's rights and parental rights.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why I'm happy that they won. And these moral issues are huge, they're massive, they're so important. Like the worst thing you can do in this world is rape or kill a child or a woman or a man.
Well,
And it's done mostly by men, so evil men. So they're trying to stop it. You know what I mean?
Well, it takes a man to put a stop to it, which is, I guess, why these Republican women are lobbying Trump to do this. I think.
Yeah, well, they're actually politicians themselves, so you know, these women doing it for lots of reasons, not for Mr. Trump necessarily, but the fact is. They're in the same party, and he's supporting them, and they're supporting him. So his goal is, what you see in these meetings and the legislation that he created, 9 laws, plus all the speeches that he made, you know, with these women, political women as well, and they want to stop it. So that proves that they're much better politicians. And with the other party, the Democrat Party, they, like, when I studied Mr. Trump's speeches and these other politicians, the women politician speeches, like they were inspiring and excellent, and the morals, and you know, Christy Nolan, when you watch her speeches, what she talks about the economy and everything's brilliant, you know, and Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and these are brilliant political women. Tulsi Gabbard, I mean, she's just so brilliant. She should be the President of the United States, really. And then when you see that happening and then they're doing it and it's just makes a big difference. It's just huge. And it's so promoted in the news, like it should be everywhere. Because these important issues need to be stopped. Like they need to be stopped, and they're just so big. And
And I think it's great that Trump is, these women are empowered to actually try and affect change where they are. And, you know, I don't think, just going back to our last conversation, I don't think Paul would have had a problem with them doing that.
I think we maybe leave that out because
we won't talk. We
won't
won't
talk
that
about
any
it because,
further. But I think
because Paul's different. He's just a person that lived 2,000 years ago, and he was not dealing with these issues as well.
Oh,
really.
I think
not
there
in
were.
that time. Not as bad.
I mean, the Romans.
It was bad.
Romans had, you know, they were pagans and they were degenerate as well.
Yeah.
And women couldn't be. Men were acting like women on stage. You know, women couldn't act, so there were trannies back then as well, and probably invading women's spaces. But women,
I don't think there's much evidence of that in
not,
the Bible.
There's not, but there has been degeneracy, like homosexual acts were right back then too. But anyway,
yeah, we've got everyone's got views
we
on that too.
digress.
Well, all sorts of. Yeah, I wrote about that in my book too. But we can do another video about that anyway.
Yeah. And if you haven't read Teresa's book, I haven't got it, you should go out and buy it. Where's it available, Teresa?
By emailing me.
Just email Teresa. We'll put the email in the link in the chat.
You can get this. It's 556 pages. I mean, nobody in the world has even written a book like this with all this evidence. You know, it's never been written about. All this evidence put together, and all these political people and what they're saying, you know. But to stick to the Trump issue with the Democrats, when I study his speeches, And when I look at the woman candidate, Kamala Harris, and, you know, I wrote this big book about women's rights, right? But I would pick Trump because of the values and the morals. So it's not because Trump's a man.
No.
It's not because...
He just happens to be a man.
Yeah, and it's not because Kamala Harris is a woman. So it's not because of that. It's because of the values and the morals they promote and the sort of things they promote. So when I studied her speeches, which was incredibly difficult to do because I only studied a couple of her speeches actually, and it turned me off because she laughs a lot and she's not a serious leader. Serious leaders talk seriously about serious issues. They don't do that, right? So there was things that put you off. You know, she would cackle and laugh and all that, and people would, you know, often pick on that. And then when you see what she's talking about, well, what's her economic vision? What's her priority? Does she care about parents' rights? Does she care about the family? Does she care about women and children? But she's all full on promoting this transgender stuff, you know, the Democratic politicians were. And they were actually all these laws that the Republicans tried to bring in because they controlled the House then, but now they control the Senate as well. They didn't back then. And then they were blocking it. They voted against all of it. So they were for it, you know what I mean? They were trying to... And I saw her talking in an interview about men in women's prisons, which is just an abomination. That shouldn't even be happening. And how she was going to fund sex changes for men in women's prisons, you know. And that's just like, to me, that's just evil. Yeah. It's just evil. And I saw her talking about that in an interview, and I thought, listen, lady, no way. You know what I mean? And it's not because she's a woman or a man, or he's a man or woman. It's because of the morals and the values. So I really do believe over the last 2,000 years, if Christian women had led this world, that things would have been very different. But then I'm not just going to pick a woman leader because of the fact she's a woman, and not a man leader either for that fact. But it's got to be to do with the morals and the values, and that makes a massive difference.
And I think for sure. And I think it's great that we can actually see that. Yeah. But a lot of people, I don't know if I mentioned this already. Was it recorded when I said it?
I don't know.
But how I lost a lot of friends because of my support for Trump.
Yeah, right.
Because a lot of them didn't like him because they thought he was misogynist. Yeah. They thought that he hated women. Yes. But if they bothered to look into it like you did, and you and I did, you know, you actually studied his speeches and looked deeply into it. Whereas, like, a lot of these people just take the news, you know, on face value, and they listen to the propaganda that they spout about Trump. Yes. And, you know, they're uninformed. They're uninformed.
If you just read what the corporate media says about anybody, even me, like, I feel like I'm a bit like Mr. Trump. Like, they tried to kill him, right? They shot at him. They tried to kill me. And I have many values similar to those Republican politicians. And they speak out a lot more over there in America about issues. Whereas Australia is too controlled, and people are oppressed here. And we don't, you know, people are afraid to speak out about issues, and it's not as politically, the rights of people are not as strong. So I think you got to study. If you want to understand a person, you have to study their speeches. You have to study what they're saying from their own mouth and what they publish in literature or write about.
Get to know people.
And if you read the corporate media, it's often rubbish and propaganda, and it's actually lies. And it's, what they've written about me is rubbish, and what Wikipedia writes about me is absolute garbage. It's just terrible. And I tried to get it changed 3 times. I was talking about it before, and they just changed it back. And then they put a lock on it. It's bad. It's really defamatory. So when you want to study someone, what a leader, what they're like I did, okay, well, study Mr. Trump's speeches, you know what I mean? Yeah. What is he really about? What is he talking about? What sort of laws did he create? What sort of laws did he against? What was he trying to do? And that's a big, big difference. And with Mrs. Harris, it's all...
She speaks slogans. Like, she just doesn't, there's nothing that she says that has substance. You know, she just spouts these, like, you know, slogans out. Like, we're gonna make, I don't know, what was one of them? I can't even remember.
It was very difficult for me to actually study her and what she was saying, because she's not a serious leader.
No, she would say things like...
And trying to work out, what's this woman about? What's her morals and values? What's her vision? Yeah. What's her priority? What's her vision. You got to know what a leader's vision is,
Yeah.
right?
And she was just relying on the colour of her skin, you know, which is,
Yeah.
we were discussing this again before,
Yeah,
which
before,
is more
yeah.
racist, you
Yeah.
know. She was like going into, you know, black communities, and all of a sudden she had this, you know, black accent, and then she would go into churches, and all of a sudden she was like sounding like some preacher, and just, you know, saying things that sounded good but had no real substance. Like that, I don't know if you saw that little clip of her going into a church and saying, oh, you know, weeping may endure for the night, but joy cometh in the morning. You know, she actually said it like that.
Yeah,
and
right.
it was like, what are you saying, woman?
Yeah.
How's joy going to come in the morning?
Apparently,
When you don't have an economic plan for
well, she probably doesn't even believe in Jesus, so.
no, she doesn't as well. So, but she's like
She did-
pretending. She's lying to the people.
She did say that God, and a few times I saw, and she did talk about God. God bless America, and God bless.
Yeah, but
You know, there was
everyone says that.
there were some things that she did say which were quite okay, which were quite good, which I saw, but it's actually trying to find proper speeches from her actually was difficult, and there wasn't a lot that she said of great substance.
No.
There's a big difference, you know. If you've got excellent morals, you can make an excellent leader. That's it. To be an excellent leader, you need excellent morals.
Yeah.
And if you don't have it, you will not be a good leader. You'll be a bad leader. You'll do destructive things, immoral things, and for the population, and that's a bad leader.
Yeah.
So there's always a distinction. And other things, I think they spent over $1 billion giving to celebrities and all sorts of groups
To endorse them.
to
Yeah.
promote them and,
Yeah.
and go to their events and all that. I read that somewhere. It's still a secondary source. I don't know how accurate that is. I'm always a bit wary of secondary sources. You've got to get it from the horse's mouth. So when I studied her speeches, I'm thinking, what's this woman really about? Do you know what I mean? Like you know people. But, yeah, she was a lawyer. She was Attorney General, I think. She was a Attorney General of the United States under Biden.
So,
And he, you know, I also think that he RIGGED that election in 2020. I really think he did. And I think she didn't. And that's why Trump won too, because she didn't rig it. I spelt it because YouTube took a video of mine off before talking about it. So, because in the morning, that night, they were saying Trump won in 2020. And then in the morning, they said Biden won. And it was fixed, right? And this time that didn't happen that way. They were saying Trump was winning, and then I said to everyone on the Facebook, I said, well, wait till the morning, wait till the morning, see what they're saying in the morning, and then they still said that Trump won, so she didn't fix it, but Biden did, I think, and that's why it also came out in favour of Trump, which was excellent, which was good. So people also say too, what
but
else?
you just have to look in
Yeah.
her backyard. I mean, I just Googled it now. She was the California, I think. She was Attorney General of California, District Attorney of San Francisco. So you just have to look at that state.
Well, what they're trying to do
to see what it's
Yeah.
become, and
Yeah.
she's just left it for dead.
Yeah,
Like there,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know, it's full of drug addicts and homeless people,
yeah,
and yeah. So you know from their actions,
yes.
you know from their fruits what.
And that's another good thing about
Yeah.
Trump. He made public statements about the death penalty for big time drug traffickers to stop the fentanyl in the United States. That's massive. Also, for rapists of children, he was talking about the death penalty for them, which I agree with, because of what Jesus said: drown them in the ocean with a rock around the neck. We won't get into that now.
No.
But anyway, I agree with Mr. Trump on that. And she also, what else she did? She wants an open border, right? And that's not healthy. That's not good.
And the thing is, like, if you care about the people, you care about morals. You care about protecting their rights as well. So that means, protect women from, the men going into female spaces pretending to be women. Protect the borders.
Yeah.
Protect protect the people from taking drugs. But she just has a very permissive way of parenting
Was she a parent?
Well,
I don't
not
know.
really,
I don't know
but
if
like
she's
I'm just
is she
saying, like
married? I don't know
if
she's
we
married.
look at government on a micro level, I mean, they're really the country's, you know, parents. Like if I had to govern my house,
Yeah.
if you look at me as, you know, the vice president of my home, we instill good values in our children. We try to, you know, put disciplinary measures for them when they, you know, step outside the rules of the house. Whereas like Kamala Harris, like the defund the police, there aren't police. Like did they end up defunding the police, the Democrats?
Well, they didn't.
Well,
but
they didn't, but they're almost non-existent in California, and
yeah. Well, there
because-
needs to be a lot more women in the police to stop violence towards women and children. But they were not. They don't talk about that. They don't. That's not her vision. She wasn't trying to do that either. So yeah, this whole defund the police and all that. You go, of course you have to have police. You have to have police. It's not just for law and order. It's not. I wrote about all that in my book. My view on the political law is often used abusively and bad. So it's not for law and order. It's just to protect women and children, and there has to be proper moral guidance and direction for the police and the military.
Well, there needs to
and
be
unless you have the right
consequences.
morals as a leader,
Yeah.
you can't provide that. You can't
Yeah.
give that. You will not. You
No.
won't have the discernment
No.
between good and evil,
Yeah.
good and bad, and you can't make those decisions. You can't.
No.
It's impossible for a leader to make the right decisions morally if they don't have the right morals. How can you?
Well,
You're going to promote things that are perverted or, you know.
Yeah, but that's not to say that Trump is, you know, the epitome of a moral man. Like he's not a Christian. He's not a Christian, but he does have a better moral framework than the Democrats,
Well,
obviously, because of the people around him. So
I think
there-
that
yeah.
he's got more Christian type values, whether he's a Christian or not. He does
Yeah.
believe in God, and you can tell he believes in God.
And just
But-
his family around him as well. Like if you look at the
Yeah.
support that his family gives him,
Yeah.
obviously, you know, they have a lot of respect for him.
But for him to be able to sit with women, Christian women, and do
Yeah.
something about that sex trafficking and online trafficking of sex trafficking, that's massive. And that shows that he's got excellent values. In fact, what other political man in history has even done that? I don't think there are any. So to me, that's big. And also, he's a businessman. I don't know if they go to church. Maybe they do. I don't know if they do or not. But the thing is, they've got the type of morals that he has. He's not perfect. Obviously, he's a bit of a womanizer and all that. And all that's come out and all these allegations against him. And I wrote about that in my book too, about these allegations against him. I don't know what's
But
happened. How do I know? How do we know? We're in a different country. We don't know. We don't even know what happened.
That's what the media tells us.
Oh, what I was going to say before, what the Democrats did, they tried to put Trump in prison. They did what they did to me in Australia, and they're using their political power to destroy their political opponents. Now I didn't do anything wrong to be locked up. Just said I should be the Governor General, or you know, under God Almighty, and doing that, and that's probably is true. So that's you don't put people in prison for that.
Yeah, it's
But they
ridiculous.
did without trial, and it's very dangerous. You know, and so they tried to put him in prison. They tried to kill him at the rally. That's who's behind that. Do you know what I mean? Like we don't know. There's people behind that probably involved in that other party. Surely, I mean, you try to destroy your political opponent like those in very serious ways, imprisonment or trying to shoot someone or kill someone with drug injections. It's very dangerous. Those people on that party in that side they say that the left. Self-subscribed left, because I don't like left wing, right wing. I really don't.
No,
but they say left wing or whatever, and they're trying to rub out in Australia as well. They're trying to rub out their political opponent, and that's evil when they're in power. And they tried to do that to him and to me here, and they're just tyrants. That just proves that they will destroy everybody and anybody. If they do like that, you know what I mean? They don't care, and that to me, they're bad leaders. They're bad leaders, and
they're not leaders.
They're actually dangerous people. Do you know what I mean? If you're going to do that to your political opponents like that,
Well, they're Satanists. At the end of the day, the people who run the world, they're Luciferian, Baphomet worshipping Satanists.
That's right. They're demonic.
They're demonic.
Yeah.
Because how can you, in good conscience, just lie to the people? And they lie to the people all the time.
Yes.
Like we were discussing the whole COVID thing. That was a massive lie.
Big lies.
Yeah.
It was all patented.
Yes.
I proved all that, and then they start taking your videos off. And the misinformation, disinformation in Australia, that's just evil. That's just tyrannical. I mean, it's just before Christmas. We're coming up to Christmas, and their priority is to bring in laws which censor the population. Their priority, they're putting in electoral laws. I wrote about the electoral system, how it's all rigged under the Electoral Act of 1918. Well, if you put in the law to rig it for two parties, it's rigged, right? And then they're trying to increase, it's $3.70 a vote at the moment for federal elections. They're trying to make it $5 a vote. How corrupt is that?
What do you mean by that? Sorry.
Well, the electoral funding at the moment is $3.70 something. I've got the figure in my book. I don't know exactly what it is, something like that. They've been increasing it every 6 months.
So who pays for that?
Every 6 months they increase it by a few percent since 1984, and it's up to $3.70 a vote. But now they're just trying to bring in laws right now in Australia where they're going to pay themselves $5 a vote, a vote per vote under electoral funding in federal elections.
Yeah.
4%, you get more than 4% of the votes.
Yeah.
And cap funding to independents at $80,000 or something, but it's not the independents who get most of it. It's Labor, Liberal, Greens, Nationals. Pauline Hanson gets a little bit.
But Australia wasn't
But
established.
that is just so corrupt and criminal to do that. That's their priority. Do you know what I mean?
Australia's always going to be a penal colony established by the monarchy, the British monarchy, and I think that's the reason why, you know, America. I mean, you've got so many Christian Republicans in America, Christian women, female Republicans in America who are strong, who do speak out. But what you've got here in Australia, you've got puppets.
Yeah.
You've got, like, no offense to Pauline Hanson, like, she says a lot of good things, but what exactly has she done? You know, she's done nothing.
She's trying to help the people. You can see she's trying to help the people, but she's just been sued by a Greens politician. That Greens politician should be thrown out. What she's done to Pauline Hanson, I'm against that. That's bad. That's bad.
Which one?
That's free
Which
speech.
Green? Is that fruity?
Yeah.
Oh,
Now, you can't do that. You've got to have people born in your own nation in the parliament. That's it. This idea, you go to someone else's nation and you become a politician,
I know,
that's
just
rubbish.
so
That's
wrong.
bullshit. That's treason right there. You can't allow that. Doesn't matter where they come from. It doesn't matter. And Pauline Hanson is Australian born, and she cares about the people. She does, even though you don't agree with everything. I don't agree with everything she says at all. But there are some things that I do agree with her, and for that politician to sue her in the court and the judge,
it shouldn't be allowed.
she was almost forced to pay nearly $1 million to this Greens politician. But they're both politicians. Free speech. You can't sue other politicians. You can't allow a politician to sue another politician and a judge take that aside, and the judge awards damages to her. It's a Greens politician. She's not Australian. She shouldn't even be in the parliament. And it's got nothing to do with anything other than she shouldn't be there because she's not born in this country. And it doesn't matter what colour they are, where they're from, who they are, whatever, it doesn't matter. And the British system, I don't agree with a lot of things they do in Australia. Absolutely not. Like, my parents are Dutch. I don't have that same line of descent. Your parents, you're from the Philippines, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's millions of Australians that live here, born here, live here, that don't have those British, you know, the way they run the Magistrates Court. Oh my God, that's just horrific. You know,
but
it's run by the police,
that,
which is
what
wrong.
should have happened
It should be
a long
changed.
time
There's
ago.
lots of things that
Like,
they
I don't know,
here
like,
that
do
are
you
bad.
think it's because we are still a monarchy? I think because in America there's more freedom. They've got the Bill of Rights, they've got a constitution, because they fought for it.
Yeah.
They could have still been under the British monarchy, but the Americans actually fought for independence.
Yeah, well, that's right.
And I'm thinking, like, maybe that's the problem. Maybe Australians just never fight. Like, they just don't fight for their independence. And it's like they just don't have that in them.
They don't fight for that. Well, they get oppressed. Australia's it's only got 26 million people. It's very controlled, and that's the difference. So America's got 340 million people. Europe has, in European countries they have bigger populations.
But it hasn't always been like that. But at establishment, America
has always had a very small population, so it's very easy to control people when you've got a small population. And this is why in America they've got 340 million people. You can't control 340 million people. They've got a constitution with a Bill of Rights. Australia doesn't have that.
Yeah.
They've got a foreign monarchy. Yeah. So you're right. They've got a foreign monarchy which is still British, and it's appointing that Governor General, which is
the Governor General's a dog's body. She does nothing.
Well, the way they run it is.
Yeah, the way they run it is.
But under the Constitution, the Governor General is the most powerful person in Australia.
Exactly.
That's why I want that job.
But she does nothing.
But I think God wants me to have that job.
Who is she? Who is she at the moment?
They're paying her over $700,000.
Yeah, but who is she at the moment? Is it Bill Shorten?
Sam Moyston. Sam Moyston.
Is that the one that Bill
They
Shorten
just appointed another one.
Or is this a new one?
I don't know anything about that.
No.
No, it was David Hurley that they appointed. It's just a rubber stamp for them. And the Constitution has not been run the way it's written in Australia.
No.
Actually, the position of Prime Minister is not in the Australian Constitution. And there was a Royal Commission report published in 1986 that proved that. And all the judges and the people involved in that Royal Commission, they all said it. And I've got a textbook from my days as a teacher that proved that. It's not in the Constitution, the position of Prime Minister. The word cabinet is not in the Constitution. It's section 61 to 70, it's called a Federal Executive Council, which is a team of politicians. It's about 50, and I've got the laws about that, which a law came in 1951 that said it was originally 7, but I think it's up to 50 now. There is no Prime Minister. It's the Governor General that runs the show under the Australian Constitution, and it's called a Governor General in Council. Which is, they work with the Governor General is supposed to work with the Federal Executive Council, and that's called the Governor General in Council. So they work with a team of politicians called the Federal Executive Council, and then what they should be doing under that Constitution is the Governor General should be meeting with the Federal Executive Council every week, and together they run the country. But they don't run it like that. They really don't. They actually don't even use the Constitution correctly. Yeah. It's so bad. And then they say they do it by convention, right?
It's a bit of a zoo.
So, but the politicians say they have a Prime Minister by convention. That's actually rubbish. That's not even in the Constitution. You can't just make stuff up. That's like me just saying, okay, well, if they're going to do that by convention, I'm the Governor General of Australia by convention, by the people's will and by the people's support and the people's will, and that's exactly what they do. So they shouldn't have never harmed me at all,
You should sue them.
No, I am going to sue them. And then the book, and give it to the judge, the Supreme Court, or wherever. And then they can't just make up stuff. Like, it's not even in the Constitution. They don't even run it the way it says it in there. From the beginning, they haven't run it that way since Edward Barton.
I don't understand how they can run it that way.
There's no Prime Minister in the Constitution. You can't just... There's no Prime Minister, no officer Prime Minister. How is that person elected? How is that person appointed? It's not even in there. I mean, so from the start, they just corrupted it. Yeah. It's terrible.
And it should be like, if the Governor General, she represents the Queen or the King of England, and she should be getting all the the information from them and like affecting laws here, representing the Queen or the King. But she's not even doing that.
It's not
so
done.
How can you run a monarchy when there's no king, there's no queen?
It's all bad. The way they're set up in Australia is bad. What I proved in my book, the Governor General should be elected by the people. The people, they need to have a ballot, a federal ballot for the voters of Australia elect their own Governor General, their own Prime Minister, if they're going to put it in the Constitution.
And that's why they...
And it has to be by direct ballot by the voters of Australia. That's what I put in my political website.
And just going back to your
point... So the voters do it, the voters.
Just going back to the point of, like how America fought for their independence in Australia hasn't done that. And I think that's because when you say that we don't have the population to do that, I think it's because... maybe this is why they lifted the White Australia policy and brought a lot of immigrants into the country to keep the people divided, so there's no uprising against.
Yeah, I think it's very divisive. to
Yeah,
have like
it
a
was
multicultural
it was
policy,
obviously
but
a divisive policy and
bringing people-
designed to divide.
But bringing people all over the world to Australia, I'm not against that.
I'm not against.
I'm not against filling this country with Christian people, for
Yeah,
example,
yeah.
or you know, more oppressed women
Yeah.
from Afghanistan or whatever, you know, to give them freedom and rights. But the thing is, it's okay to do that. But do you know that Australia is one of the few countries in the world, like you know, like in Asian nations, you can't buy property. If you go into that country and you're not Australian or born in that country or a citizen,
Yeah.
you can't buy property, you can't go into politics, you can't do it. But it happens here.
Yeah.
Well, what the hell?
Yeah.
Why is that allowed? You know, it shouldn't be allowed. The people who are born in the country have rights.
Yeah.
But if you bring people from all over the world, that's fine. But the thing is, you can't just
There needs to
come
be-
into people's
yeah.
country. You can't go into someone's country and just do
And
what
just
you
try
want
and-
and
yes.
take over
Yeah.
and all this sort of
Yeah.
thing. The British were wrong what they did.
But
But
I mean, they're all
it's,
compromised. We're talking about politicians who have no conscience. All they care about is their own personal well-being. They're obviously lining their pockets with money that they're getting from the people they're bringing here. I mean, look at just
Yeah.
recently they renamed the lake in that suburb. Did you hear about that one?
The lake, what lake?
The lake.
They renamed it.
Yeah, they renamed it to an Indian name.
Indian. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well,
Because-
that's, if you're going to rename stuff like the Cooper, the federal electorate Owen, it was renamed after an Aboriginal
Yeah,
man.
well-
That's okay.
Well, that's
They're the first
that's
people here.
normal.
You know,
that seems normal
the first
to me,
people
but to
here,
rename
and the
it-
way they've been treated is disgusting. And I wrote about that in my book as well. You know, they just about wiped them out. It's 3.2% of the population now, and half of them are not full-blooded Aboriginal. So that's a whole big different area as well. Do you know what I mean?
I
That's
don't
all.
want to get into that, but to rename a lake an Indian name because the people
because they're all Indian
lobbied
in the
for it,
area.
yeah.
See, that's what I call replacement
That's-
democide. I wrote about
yeah.
that in my book. A lot of that goes on in Australia. It's not good. It's the things that have gone on here. You know, Australia's got beautiful beaches and bush, and you know the
was
people. The
established so
people are
beautifully
generally
too.
pretty good,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of things that have gone on in the last 235 years. To me, are really shocking.
It's the
Shocking.
people in power that destroyed it. I
The
was
people
just
in
saying,
power have done it. Yes.
yeah. I mean,
That's
and the
right.
people on the ground also. There was a level of complacency that I don't think they realised what was going on. They didn't stay informed. They didn't keep an eye on what was happening, and I think that has a lot to do with it as well. And you've got a lot of. Someone told me that Australia wasn't founded, there was no class system in Australia, but there was a class system. You had the proles, and then you had the, what do you call them? Aristocrats,
Yeah.
right? The landowners. Yeah. So, like when you...
I think every nation has that.
Yeah. But a lot of the landowners sold the land out from under us. Like a lot of, like farmers, for example. And I don't blame them. I'm not saying that I'm saying what they did was wrong, but I'm saying like I don't blame them either, right? Because it's not easy to farm. It's not easy. It's hard.
Well, money
it's hard.
talks, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly.
If they're gonna,
Yeah, if
the
some
Chinese are
farm-
going to buy dairy farms and
exactly,
airports
and vineyards.
well,
Like, I
airports
know-
and airstrips and,
Yeah.
and ports and they shouldn't be allowed to do that. Actually, I'm against that. I've got it in my
They shouldn't
political
be allowed
website.
to do
It
it,
should
but
be
the politicians allow them. They let them just come in
They do,
and buy
and that's wrong.
stuff. They
so then
buy
the farmers
stuff.
will go, well, I can get,
Yeah, I can get a couple
I
of
can
$1 million
get
for
10
this.
million
I'll
from this.
retire. Yeah,
You can understand why they do it. I don't
Yeah.
blame them, but it should be much bigger protections for the farmers and much bigger protections for Australian property owners and business owners, and everything should be Australian owned. Like one of the first things I'd do if I was the Governor General, I would just put all the resources of this country into the name, a legal name, the Australian people, like that name, and then it can be owned and run by Australians. That to me seems a simple,
it's ideal.
fair,
It's
moral
idealistic.
way to say.
Yeah.
And then the people running those resources, whether it's mines or farms or all sorts of industries as well, it should be employed by Australians, employed and manage these companies and businesses, and directors, and they're running it, because that's how you build up the economic power of the people, by employing the people, and education. You know, as a teacher, I know that, so that they're educated to run
empowered. They're
businesses
empowered
and companies and
educated.
work, and they're running and controlling and running and administering their own resources. I mean, that's just common sense
It is
as well.
common sense.
But if you've got good morals, you can understand that. But if you don't, you don't, and you don't care. That upsets me when I see these big multinational corporations coming into any country,
Yeah.
and they go and do that, and they take over, and they're very wealthy, and they take it's all
taking
profit,
over.
and it's wrong.
They are taking
And
over.
people are homeless in Melbourne and
Yeah.
Sydney, and
I
it's
know.
disgusting. It's
really
shocking,
sad.
and they've got
I
nowhere to
know.
live, no job,
I know.
getting drugged in this bad psychiatric system, which I read a hell of a lot about that. And then it's just terrible. It's like, what the hell? What sort of a leader does that? How do these people sleep at night? Honestly,
They have no conscience. That's how they've risen
They've
up
got
to
no
that
conscience.
level. That's why they've risen up so high. And I mean, this is why Jesus came.
yeah,
Ultimately, this is why Jesus came.
yeah.
You know,
And I do look at Jesus all the time. I think,
he came. He wept over Israel because he saw the oppression of the people.
Yeah.
And the people thought that he was going to take over the Roman government and reinstate Israel back to the Jews.
yeah,
You know, but they were very limited in their thinking, because it wasn't just, you know, the Jews that Jesus came for. He came for everyone.
yes.
He came for all of us
For
who
all
are
humans,
oppressed,
all
because
humans,
yeah,
all
we're
over the
not
world.
we're not going to be saved by a politician. Trump's not going to save us.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, even
That's
though
right,
he's
yeah.
going to do some good things,
Yes.
you know, God's holding back the evil. He's
Yeah.
holding back the dark.
Yeah.
And he's going to allow, you know, good things to happen now, because he
I've
cares
seen-
for the people. He wants the people to come to him.
I've seen people say on social media, Trump's the saviour of the world. I said,
Yeah,
what?
it's really
I said,
sad.
no.
It's
I
so
said,
sad.
Jesus Christ is the saviour of the world, you know? And you're so right. You're so right. You're like,
praise God.
every time I get overwhelmed
Yeah.
by things that go on, which is often,
Yes. and
I think about
it's easy,
Jesus and I
yeah.
say, hey, Teresa, just
Yeah,
think about Jesus.
yeah.
And then he gives you that wisdom as
Yes,
well. And
yeah.
then it's like, you know, you just keep talking about Jesus. Because at the end of the day, Jesus saves us and we go to heaven. You
Yeah.
know, the most important decision any human can make is the Christian faith
Amen. Amen.
decision.
Amen.
And it's the decision and the question about Jesus. Because if you make that decision for Jesus, you're going to go to heaven. If you suffer, you're going to go to heaven at
and
least.
and it's
You know,
not even
and-
about going to heaven. Like, it's about quality of life here on earth.
Well, that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're like not, if you don't know Jesus, like if we didn't know Jesus and we were politically minded the way we are and invested, it would just be so depressing. Wouldn't it be
It
so
would be.
depressing?
It would
We would
be
be
depressing.
angry.
Well, yeah, it's already depressing.
Yeah.
And it would be
Even more so
it would be even
depressing.
more depressing. But yeah, you're right. It would be. There's no hope.
There's no hope, but we have
So
hope in Christ.
That's right. You've
Yeah.
got hope in Jesus, and that can actually calm you down, and it can actually, like, okay, just take perspective, you know. But in trying to help people too, and you think, oh, where can I help? If I don't have the political power to stop these abuses and injustices, and then it's
But politics is
But-
downstream from the culture. Politics is downstream from the culture. So the real changes that need to be made are on the ground at a grassroots level. And I think that's where we can make changes, Teresa. We can
Yeah.
make changes there. You know, you've helped, you know, the poor people. You help people all the time. You know, I do my bit. You know, but that's where real change is gonna take place. And it may not be tomorrow, it may not be next year, it may not be in 10 years' time. Jesus may come back before any real changes take place.
yeah,
But we don't stop doing what we're called to do. And
yeah. I'm happy when Jesus comes back.
yeah, I'm happy with that too. Like, I just want Jesus to come back. That's
Then
why
we get
yeah.
raptured to heaven.
Yeah,
It's in the book
yeah,
of Revelation.
yeah.
You got to read it.
Yes.
And then also, so if, I think they have to be physically removed to actually make political change. Even if 10 billion Australians won't change unless they force them to be removed, either at the ballot or arrested or whatever. It's not going to happen.
yeah,
But I've sent my book to a few politicians already, federal and state, and It's only published July, so it's still early days. I'm sure they're reading it, and to try to get them to stop these abuses. You know what I mean? To try to get them to stop some of these abuses going on in Australia. And even it's a global audience. The book's written for a global audience, but it's even other countries. But I just hope and pray that people have a better life. You know, there's a lot of suffering, and
there is a lot.
And you have love and compassion for people. You get that through Jesus, and then you understand. You want people to have a better life. You want them to be working and have a house, and you want them to have a business, and you want them to look after their family, and you want them to be able to get married and have children and all that, and all those good things that God gives us too. You know, and enjoy nature and enjoy the environment and enjoy
the fruits of their labour. And
and
that's
life.
And I think predominantly that's why we're sitting here today. I feel like God's channeled me in this direction for some reason. I don't even know why. And I know people who the general public would just condemn and go, "Why are you associating with those people?" And I just think because everyone needs Jesus, they're no different. And we can see that those people they're largely disenfranchised. They've seen the changes to their own country. And it is quite sad. It's sad for them.
Because I feel bad for people. Like, I became a born-again Christian in July of 1998. And it was a big conversion experience, a bit like Paul the Apostle, actually. It was really big. It was so overwhelming and big and massive. I couldn't deny it. I was like, what? I just didn't even ask for it, but it happened, It was so powerful. And I feel sorry for people that don't know Jesus. I feel it's missing out on so much, missing out. But also, why would you choose the devil? Because if you really understand, even intellectually and with evidence that you see in creation and everything you see and what the Bible says in the New Testament particularly about things, it all makes sense to me. It all makes perfect sense. So it's why would you not want that, something good, that love as well, that deep love that you can have with that relationship with Jesus. And also, like people around you that share that love with people. I mean, you want that. You want better things for people in society. And that, to me, when people miss out on that when they reject the New Testament and they say, "Oh, it's not for me," or I feel sad for them.
Yes.
I do. I feel like you're just missing out on so much. You really are. And it could be you could just have such a better life, especially when people are suffering. When you see
and just
it's
have
like
that peace in Christ.
If you just talk to, if you just turn to Jesus, but also mix with other Christians and other people to try and help you, and you could have so much more. You could have so much more, and I just feel people miss out, and I feel sad for them. I feel sad, and plus you get to go to heaven. I mean, what better way? Even whatever life you have, you go to heaven. And if everything in the New Testament is about heaven is true, well, you have everlasting life. You live on forever,
and
forever
you get to
in
be
heaven.
with Jesus forever. Like, what? Who wouldn't want that?
Who would want that? Who wouldn't want that? What a great thing to look forward to. I mean, the gospel to me is just so powerful and great and brilliant. And I just see all these things that Jesus did. In the New Testament, you look at all the. We should do another video just on this, like the miracles in the New Testament that Jesus did.
The lives he changed.
There's over 40 recorded miracles, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. He healed people, healed the blind, the people couldn't walk, and the crippled and the lame, and he just loved people, and he loved women as well. He was just loving everybody and healing everybody, and wanting good things for everybody, and wanting a better life. And the teaching he gave, when you study his teaching in the Gospel of John, is one of the best films. You've got to look at that film. It's so brilliant.
Is that with The Chosen? Or
no,
is it a separate DVD?
It's called The Gospel of John. It's a film from, I think it's like the 1990s or something like that. It's just such a brilliant film, and it's about the Gospel of John. And if you look at the Gospel of John and then look at that film, it's about 95% scripturally accurate.
Well, John's
so
actually,
powerful, the teaching of Jesus and what he taught about and what he said and what he did. And when you study all that, I'm just in awe.
The Gospel of John is about the godness of Jesus, the deity of Jesus. So, I'm not surprised you love that.
He did, and the brilliant things that he did. Like if you look at the life of Jesus, and it's like, oh, I'm just in love with Jesus. I can't help it, like it's just. No, because it's so brilliant. No?
I
And it's
know.
like once you discover that, and then
Yeah.
after the months after I became a born again Christian, I studied that and I looked at Jesus' life and what all the things he did. I was just in awe.
Yeah.
You know, like I
Yeah.
thought, this is just so brilliant. You
Yeah.
know, and I'm glad I became a Christian. And that's what God destined for me too, because
Yeah.
by the power of the Holy Spirit, he came into my life and he grabbed me and he just changed me in so many ways. And I became a much better teacher as well when I was working in the school system. I'd only been I've been teaching since 1996, and in 1998 I became a born again Christian, and it made me a much better teacher. We were talking about it earlier. You know, it makes you a much better
We
teacher, or
became
person,
Christians
or
the same
parent,
time.
or
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
in many ways it does make you better. Like it was a slow progress for me when I became a Christian. You know, it was very difficult to be a parent. So I think, you know, I didn't do everything right. I think, you know, I made a lot of mistakes, but God's grace.
Yeah, I made
is there.
mistakes. I
Yeah.
made mistakes in my life, but we all do. Every day we sin. We have a sinful nature. Every day. It's not. We can't be. We're not perfect. We never are. We never will be. But we can just keep thinking about the Holy Spirit and about Jesus and helping people and all that, and love. You know, first and second commandment. And then that's what we try to do. Try to do the best you can. That's what I reckon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
So should we finish there?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.